Happy Friday. Or if you took a look at what happened with the market yesterday, things were cruising up pretty nicely. And then all of a sudden, I was right about to go on to Fox Business and the market just started to drop. I got a message from the producer that said, hey, we're mixing it up. We're going to change. Biden's supposed tax plan just came out. You might want to take a look at it before we go on. I'm going to talk about that, what I think about it, what you need to be doing on today's Wealth Talk. So guys, I don't know where to start. I try to keep these to 15 minutes just to make sure that you're able to get a lot of information in a short period of time each week on my channel here. So what I'll also say is just on Fox Business yesterday with Charles Payne on my Instagram account, we posted that link there. So the Biden tax bill that he's probably going to be talking about next week was leaked somehow on Thursday of this week. And let me just digest it down to what is the biggest issue that is facing the market right now, why stocks sold off. I want you to be able to understand why, and the underlying issue that I have with this whole thing that nobody is talking about, that I'm trying to educate people on. So, okay, let's talk about capital gains rates are really what is at the center of all this. Right now, to simplify it, if you hold a stock for 366 days or any asset at all, real estate, businesses, and you sell those at 366 days, that's what's called a long-term capital gain. If you do that, you pay the government, depending on how much money you made, between 15 and 20% flat rate. That's how it works. Okay. Now, that's whether you started a business, like I said, whether you're selling a stock. Well, what Biden said today is that what he's looking to do is if you make $1 million and above, we don't know a lot yet. This is still asymmetrical, but those taxes are going to go from 20% on the highest rate to 43.4%, which is going to be the largest increase, the largest capital gains rate that this country has ever seen. And what's the problem with that? Well, obviously, the stocks that got hit the hardest, the technology stocks, are where most investors like you and I, whether you're investing just in your 401k, you're buying stocks, you have ETFs, a lot of the gains over the past few years has been in those stocks. So if you want to sell those stocks, let's just say you have a $10,000 gain. Well, today, if you sell that at 20%, you'd be paying the government $2,000 of that gain. You get to keep $8,000 of that gain. Well, what Biden is proposing of that $10,000 gain, you're going to actually now pay $4,300 instead of $2,000. So you see, that's a huge issue for investors. And what everyone's trying to figure out is, when is this going to happen? Is it going to happen? Because let me tell you this. If we know that this is going to happen, let's just say in 2022, you better watch out below, because this market's going down. If I have capital gains, which I do, I'm not going to sell and pay 43% next year when I could pay 20% this year. It makes absolutely no sense. So that's what you're seeing people do. Now, obviously, there's not enough information for you to make any decision at all right now. Now, also, this has to get passed through Congress. There is some hope that there's some moderate Democrats like Senator Manchin out of West Virginia, who usually does not go along with these types of issues. So the market sold off about 1% on Thursday. As I mentioned on Fox yesterday, if the market was 100% certain that this was going through, you would have seen the market down 6, 7, 8%. It would have been a catastrophe. So I think at the end of the day, more than likely, there's going to be some balance and reasoning. Now, when you talk about capital gains, let me tell you about the biggest issue I have with this. It's taxed the same way across the board. So if I buy a piece of real estate and I invest in that and I sell it, 12 months in a day from now, if I buy Apple stock, I sell it 12 months in a day. Or if I build a business, and let me tell you from personal experience, somebody who built a business out of his bedroom with credit card debt, washing cars on the weekend to make sure that I could support myself, because the first few years of starting business, I wasn't able to do that. Put tons and tons of money there, took out tons and tons of debt to be able to grow that business, to get it to a point where I did last year to sell some of that business, to take some money off the table and get some money back from everything I put into it. Well, the government at that point, along with the state of California, took about 35% of that. Now, that is a little bit different, don't you think, than just the Apple stock that I did nothing for and just bought some Apple stock and sold it? Don't you think those two things should be treated differently? And so a lot of people out there are just getting started. So they hear $1 million and they think, oh, that's not me. They don't care. Tax those people. Well, let me tell you, somebody who works with small business owners and knows the blood, sweat, and tears that goes in, the sacrifices, the things that they miss out on the years to put those businesses together. And then when they get to retirement and they can't work any longer because they're too old, and the only asset they really have is what they were able to put into that business through sweat equity, and they want to sell that business. And let's say these are people that are making $150,000 a year. If you consider that rich in California or New York or other states like that, you're crazy. You're barely getting by, unfortunately. If they were making 150,000, and let's say you go to sell that business, normally you get a 10 multiple, let's say roughly, they'd make $1.5 million total. That's what they would bring in for their retirement income. Now, the government in the state of California is saying, well, of that 1.5 million, why don't you give us 56% of that? So we'll leave you with under, let's call it $800,000-900,000 that you have to spend for the rest of your retirement. And we're going to take the lion's share of that. Now, does that seem fair to you? Does that seem like it's an equitable distribution of wealth? And they're going to hide all this stuff in government plans and childcare and all that. But at the end of the day, you and I both know. And look, I don't lean either side. I'm all about the American dream, giving people the ability to succeed, but not penalizing that success. Right? But isn't it different? I was talking to somebody when I sold part of my business last year in the gym, and he was asking me about the taxes. And he's from the UK, and he was saying, yeah, that's crazy, because the way they look at it over there, it's completely different. That type of sweat equity, that type of business that you build isn't the same as buying Apple stock. So they have something called an entrepreneur's tax. I think it's around 10% flat. And that makes sense. But here's the problem with our political system. Anything that makes sense is never going to pass. What they want to do is pass news clips, sound bites. They want to insult your intelligence. But you need to start pushing back, because if you're somebody who's watching this Wealth Talk, if you don't have it today, more than likely you're watching this because someday you want to have it. And do you want to spend all your life taking all your risk as a small business in America, creating jobs for people, the foundation of this country, for 20, 25 years, when you want to take some money off the table, be rewarded for that, share some of that with your family? Do you want to give 60% of that away to the government? I think it's absolutely disgusting. And so what I wanted to talk about to you guys today, especially those of you who aren't making that type of money yet, you're going to be. If you're working your butt off, you're doing what's right, you're investing in yourself, you're going to be making that money. And even though you're not, I can tell you, even when I was not making anywhere close to that, I never penalized those people, because I knew in America, I had the opportunity to get there, and I was going to get there. I was going to do whatever it took. So you got to start thinking, you got to start pushing back on some of these ideas. So if you're wondering, well, why did stocks sell off? Why are people so worried about this? Think about that. Think about those people who built businesses, and a lot of you have done it. A lot of you in the middle of building your business today. And even though you might not be where you're at, you need to start thinking about the end game. And so that's some of the problem. And we talk about, there were some of the worries about this administration and all those things. The worries that they were talking about are exactly what's front and center today. So I want you guys to understand that's why the market sold off. But I also want you more to understand is that when you start hearing these big numbers like $1 million and all these things, don't dismiss that, because you're going to be in a position where that's going to be you in someday. And you want to make sure it's an equitable distribution. And like I said, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that someone who just buys a stock and does absolutely nothing to make their money is going to be taxed the same as a small business owner who's creating jobs in America, who's sacrificing everything, many cases taking on debt. Where's the government to give them handouts the years they don't make anything? The years they had to go back and live with their parents at the beginning. Oh, and how about all those businesses that failed before that maybe third or fourth one was finally successful enough to at least support themselves? Let's start asking questions. Let's start thinking. Let's stop listening to sound bites. Let's start pushing back. Let's start waking up. That's Wealth Talk for this Friday. I hope that was helpful and shed some light on it. We'll talk to you next week. See you soon.